of 2022, and thank you very much for your participation. And it's not, while we say it's not a huge agenda, we've got an important kind of training role during the day as well, but we'll keep the meeting going as formally as we can and inclusive as I possibly can too. So Dave, it's 9:30, the meeting is now open. The first item is that of apologies. Are there any apologies that have been made to any member of the council or to you, Dave?
We have apologies from Councillor Quayle, who will be popping out of the meeting from time to time for the Ruakura Animal Ethics Committee.
Okay. There's also one from it's Councillor Husband online. He indicated he would be online. He is okay. Then I'm just going to move that Councillor Husband for lateness. I spoke to him in this regard. Any others on the team that should or have not come up yet, Dave? I was Councillor Teck Nebon, yes, he's here. Morning, Teck. Councillor Teck, are you coming on? Is he on board?
No. Yes, I'm here, thanks.
Oh, good morning, Dennis.
Morning.
Okay, I formally move the apologies be received. Better get a second Councillor Hodge. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, aye. The confirmation of the agenda is outlined and circulated. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, carried. Are there any disclosures of interest that should be recorded? There are none. I'll move to the next item, and that is the open minutes, of the meeting of the 9th of February. Moving these in regard to as they are true and correct record. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor McPherson, seconded by Councillor Strange. If there's no comment, I'll now move on and formally put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. With the same mover and seconder, I'd like to address the minutes of the 24th of February as true and accurate. Moved by Councillor McPherson, seconded by Councillor Strange. No questions or comments? All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, carried. Dave, I spoke to Councillor Quayle, and Councillor Quayle has got the Animal Ethics Committee. Mind you, Council is far more, well, I've got to be careful the way I put it, it should take precedent, but Barry, we'll try and juggle it as much as we can. Barry, are you online?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Chair.
Yep, you've got the floor, Barry.
Thank you very much. My report to Council is covering two matters on page 27, if you're happy to move to that item. So just a question on whether you'll advance that in the agenda, Chair.
Yes, the mover of the agenda and second of the agenda is happy about that. So we'll deal with that item now, Barry. Page 27
Thank you very much.
Of the open section, so we're all clear.
That's right. So Contracts Committee decisions there. I'm very pleased to report, thanks to Councillor Strange and the staff, giving effect to a Hamilton bus network change program. This is absolutely positive for Hamilton, and as a Hamilton constituent MP, I'm jumping ahead of myself there, Councillor. I'm really pleased about this, and I've got to say that this is giving effect, this Contracts Committee is giving effect to that. There are some risks around that forecast expenditure, and there's risks, as you can understand, in the current climate we're in. There's some risks definitely that might impact the cost and the timing of the change, but the way that things are structured, they're going to be very nimble in terms of how they respond to that, so the risks will be mitigated. So I'd just like to say, just put on record, that that decision is a very positive one for Council and for Hamilton. So thank you to Councillor Strange for really leading that side of things. So unless there's any other comments on that, I wish to just put those minutes forward.
Before I do so, and it's going to be seconded by Councillor Strange, did you want to make any comments, Councillor Strange? Has Barry pretty well covered it? I'll formally put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, it's carried. Now, the next lot of minutes, Barry.
Yes, going to the Finance and Services Committee minutes, which are on page 40, which gives the summary of decisions undertaken. I'll just first of all deal with that, section A items, and then section B. Just looking through...
Just correction there, we will not be dealing with any of the confidential on this part of the meeting, otherwise, as you know as well as I've got to formally go into confidential,
That's right.
So we'll just do the open section.
That's right, we're just doing an open section. So just looking at that, some of the key things are in terms of aspects of the corporate plan. We're very pleased as councillors on that committee to note the performance dashboard and the development of that, which is going to give us much greater visibility across the corporate plan and all the elements of that. So that was very pleasing to see. The other interesting area of note is Mercer, who I can just make a general comment that indicated that we mightn't have much effect to our investment funds from what was happening in Ukraine. It's going to be very interesting to see how they report at our next meeting. So I think that's just one of those things where, in today's world, things are changing very fast. Just going to the section B items, if I may. On section B items, which is quite a key element in where we're at, because we have to look at what's happening in our accounts and across the business of council as to what adjustments have to be made. And I can say within the context of our overall budget, the movements that are proposed here under section B are in line with, in fact, probably pretty positive given the challenges we face. And you'll know that with both the construction delays and all the matters that are facing contractors, as well as aspects to do with COVID and so on, I think that's quite a reasonable element, but I'll just focus your attention on a few big ones. The reserve fund adjustments are some of the larger ones because the public transport reserve, due to amendments to contracts to services, so that was 357,800. There is a forecast saving, as you'll know, Chair, on operating costs of Te Huia because of the COVID-19 situation. And also, we're all aware of the rescoping of shovel-ready programs, which have resulted in a lower grant income of 1.5 million, but it's offset by reducing capital expenditure. So things are moving as we might expect in that space. So also infrastructure capital is forecast to decrease by 4.11 million. The key variance is rephasing of those shovel-ready projects, which affects about 2.5 million. There is also some delays to work in a couple of other elements. So I think overall, I'd like to commend the council that we're running a pretty efficient expenditure program, and that's reflected in the section B recommendations today. Thank you, Chair.
Any questions from councillors or Director? Would you like to make any comments, Janine? Not? Councillor McPherson, would you like to move the answers seconded by Councillor Hale? there are no questions, I'll formally put it that the adoption, noting on section A, adoption of, all those in favour please say aye. Those against?
Aye.
Carried. Pattern poll. Councillor Story, you have the page 32 of your white paper. Page 32 of the white papers. I'll ask you to move those formally. Any questions from councillors in the chamber or online? There are none. I'll formally put it that that's true and accurate. Second by Councillor McPherson. Formally put it, all those in favour please say aye.
Aye.
Those against carried. The next item is that one I chair, it's page 50, it's CIRC. Before I move and second it, any questions you'd like to ask of this? If they're not, Councillor Hodge would like to move. Okay. Remington moves. Second by Councillor Story. All those in favour please say aye. Those against carried. Now the committee's reporting to council, and the first one is Regional Connections Committee. It's the 11th of February, page 53 on your white papers. Councillor Strange, you've got the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this was our Hamilton-focused Regional Connections Committee meeting. It was the first time we've had a public forum at the meeting, and we had a member of the public come and present his thoughts, which you'll find on page 62 and 63. Very technical in his contributions, but well received by the committee, and staff had taken note of his concerns. I just want to say that with HCC, we have a really good relationship within this committee, and lots of positive things going on as well. It's always difficult lining up annual plans, long-term plans. So they've been discussing infrastructure requirements within Hamilton City for PT improvements, and that discussion has been very long if you've been reading the paper. So just look with interest with that one. The Flex bus is proving really popular within Hamilton City on Friday nights and Saturday nights, and also the airport service as well is being utilised. So looking forward to that gaining some more steam and maybe being utilised to meet other needs within the city. What else? We discussed the upcoming regional public transport plan review, and directed staff on where that should go moving forward for the next 3 years. So that is well underway under the capable hands of Andrew Wilson. And I would just like to draw your attention to the PT Business Improvement Review that is moving along steadily under Mark's capable hands as well. And this coming Monday, we have the regional focused meeting where we'll discuss at length the findings of the consultation with our TAs and look to where we go from there. So understanding that that is one of Chris's KPIs. Well on track for that. And if anyone's interested in attending on Monday, you're most welcome to listen in and contribute. There'll be attendance from people around the whole region representing their TAs. Be quite timely and interesting moving forward. The thrust of the PT Business Improvement Review is to give us more agility to be nimble with how we respond to changing needs within the region for public transport. And it also changes that traditional view of just big buses moving around the region to being more focused on what individual communities will need, smaller buses connecting communities within communities and also connecting townships to townships as well. So yeah, really looking forward to where this is heading, and it's exciting times in the PT space within the Waikato region. So yeah, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can I just endorse the remarks you've made in regard to the invitation to join your standing committee on Monday? This is the biggest game changer that I have seen for many years, and I just encourage councillors, even if you come on in teams, to actually listen, ask the questions, right at this outset rather than the last minute is a time when we can, or our council chairman, Angela, can take on board with the consultants on how this would work. It's the 11th hour ain't going to work on this. We need to get your thoughts now. The proposals are huge. They are positive. Depends on which view. I personally think they are. I mean, the proposal is a CCO. I mean, this means a council-controlled organisation outside ourselves being mandated to actually run our PT, much like Auckland Transport in Auckland. So please, now's the time to actually hear firsthand, ask the questions at that committee. Of course, you can do it at full council, but it makes it so much more difficult if we're getting a long way down the track. But it is some substantial changes. I just look, Angela, at the Auckland, probably not a fair time because there's so few persons on the road, and as I say, Queen Street Newmarket's empty, but so are those buses, 60-seater buses. And I repeat, I'm absolutely tired of it when here's another bus every 10 minutes along Tamaki Drive with 3 people in it. I've now tried to overcome it by putting advertisements over the window so you can't see there's no one in the bus. But I know what you're talking about in regard to smaller buses, perhaps frequency improved, but it's whether the, I think, look, we've banged on so many years in regard to its perception as well, with these great big monsters spewing out diesel that are carrying people appreciate. You don't see them. Persons that are complaining, you don't see these buses chocker during in the mornings or in the evenings, and you've got to use your capital and they go out for tenders, so they do know what they're doing. But from our viewpoint, it's perception as well. Did you want to respond to my comments?
Yes, I will respond. I couldn't possibly comment about Auckland Transport, but yeah, I know within the Waikato we have some risk around bus driver shortages as well. So that's impacting on the level of service that we can provide at the moment. Yeah, so we'll also be discussing that on Monday. But tomorrow, half-price public transport fares start nationwide as part of the central government's initiative to reduce living costs. So yeah, really excited to see that being rolled out across buses, Te Huia, Flex and Total Mobility. So yeah, really excited by that. And it will be interesting to note if that does, what changes that will bring to patronage and boarding numbers to see if affordability is a real issue for people or if there are other things maybe we can tweak. So yeah, thank you.
Councillor Strange, just in the bus area, given this shocking epidemic that the world's suffering, including this country, what are the figures looking like kind of when we came into office? We were growing about 2-3% a year. Are we half what we were, say, 3 years ago? Or are we stabilising? Is it growing? Where are we on patronage?
We're definitely not where we were before the pandemic.
Fair comment.
But we are recovering.
Right.
Obviously, those peak times with school and work travel as well are recovering well, but I think in general people are just not travelling. I know if you go to Chartwell Mall and there's just no one there.
Right.
People are working from home. It's quite a lot of fear out there, I think.
Yes, there is.
So yeah, people are being cautious.
Right.
But I suppose that is one of the benefits of our bigger buses at the moment as well. You can socially distance on them. So that's a positive thing. But yeah, I would expect that it will recover, and really hopeful that the half price PT fares will give us a boost as well in that. Yeah. So onwards and upwards.
So positive. Don't you go upward? And to Huia, how's the patronage going there?
Ooh, that is not as positive as we would like.
No, nice way to put it.
But school holidays are coming.
Right.
And our Saturday travel and our school holiday travel has always been a one to boost numbers. So maybe that's something that the governance group can look at, boosting those times and the availability as well. And of course, we've got other improvements to be rolled out halfway through the year.
Yes.
Which will improve travel option times.
Great. That's great. Yeah. Is that May?
Which is, I would say
mid-year.
June.
Yep. Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's been a lot of the criticism as well, that the time don't suit.
Yes.
So, we've been continuous improvement within that as well. So, yeah.
Thanks for asking those questions, and Chair should really post that. I primed you to be able to respond, but you did it brilliantly as always. Councillor Litchwark.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Again, yeah, great to see what Councillor Strange is actually being able to achieve in the Transport Department. Question though, seriously, what would be the implications on Council if we were to run free services with the Te Huia first and foremost, and then perhaps some of the targeted more rural areas, of course Raglan being one of them, getting into town. I've noted the bus again empty, and a double decker running at times with just nobody in it. And I'm not sure of the additional cost in fuel, one of those big Goliaths versus a smaller bus, but those things like Air New Zealand will be just parked up somewhere, still incurring transport costs. So I would really like to investigate, as government's pointed out, the potential to run a free service for a period of time to actually start building public confidence in our service. There's no way of, there's no better way of actually increasing patronage and perhaps changing people's lifestyle to encourage them to use public transport than a free service. Whether that only be for a month or 6 months, something worth investigating. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your comments, Fred. At the moment, with the way that public transport is funded within our region, it's very clunky, hence the improvement review. So for something like that to happen, we'd need the cooperation of Waikato District, Hamilton City and us as well, because at the moment we only rate Hamilton City directly. So because the service comes into Hamilton, the fares are shared between Hamilton and where it originates as well. So yeah, it would need a lot of consultation within those three road controlling authorities, alongside Waka Kotahi as well. So once we've moved along the business improvement review, those kind of suggestions and those kind of improvements we'll be able to respond to a lot easier and a lot quicker, because it will just be one rating system. So if we rate for the whole region, then the decision making is a lot more simplified.
Thanks, Fred. Thanks, Angela. Could I firstly ask for Councillor McPherson and then Councillor Teague? Andrew? No, Andrew, I'll chair it, but thanks for your help.
If you think about a barrier-based marketing approach to that question that Fred's just asked, which assesses the barriers between us and uptake of that service, for us to do what Fred's contemplating, which intuitively makes sense, but for us to do that, we would have to have some quantitative information that says we have studied the potential market and here are the potential barriers. Because I wouldn't mind betting that if you go and ask 100 people about Te Huia and why they don't take it, I suspect price would be number 3 on the list. I'm not sure that it would be the number 1 on the list. So I would, if we're going to make that investment, and it is an investment that Fred's contemplating, and I intuitively I'd support it, but I'd really like that done on the basis of really knowing what those barriers are. So this business improvement assessment that you're doing, will it yield those barriers between us and the potential market?
Probably not around affordability. I think the 3-month trial, the 3-month period of half price fares is the best way to test the affordability question. And that will show us if price is a barrier, because, you know, our fares are pretty well priced within Hamilton and surrounds anyway. And I advocate very strongly on the Te Huia governance group to keep fares very affordable as well, and have advocated for the family pass as well. And so, yeah, it'd be really interesting to see the data from the 3-month period starting tomorrow on the affordability with the half price fares.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yes. Well, it's an answer. I would suggest that that's a blunt assessment. Because if you don't get an increased uptake, how are you going to interpret that? I would rather favour a more quantitative approach where you actually go and assess from a percentage of the population with a formal marketing study, what are the reasons why you're not taking the train, or of the following reasons could you rank them? Because if we don't do that, we're left with enthusiastic councillors and executives. Without that information, we're left with them making a really good informed guess, and I'm not sure that's right, because if we're going to give free travel on the Te Huia, we would need to be able to say to the investors all around the rohi, here's the evidence suggests that if we make them free, this is what it'll do to the patronage. Do you see what I mean? Thank you, Chair.
Just to repeat, Andrew, no, good points, but very good, headed by Hugh and Angela. They're over at particularly Waikato, Hamilton City Council with you and Dave McPherson. They've got the head around this, and there's no one moving, and for the reason they're worried in regard to the mortality rates you hear and on every night on television. It will come, it will pass. It's just a matter, it's going to take time. My personal belief is not price driven, and you're going to half price as from Monday anyway. So the roads are absolutely dead. Wrong word, empty. Councillor Story.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair.
No, I'm sorry. It's Councillor Teague. I'm sorry about that, Pamela. Dennis, you've got the floor.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Just a quick comment on the free fares. I think what surprised a lot of people was just how cheap it was to provide half of the fares free. I think it was in the region of $350 million for 3 months. And I think that sort of reinforces the campaign that already started before the government made it.
Is that for New Zealand wide, Dennis?
Yeah, I think so. So there's a campaign New Zealand wide to have free fares, and I think what the government's move has shown is actually compared to the expenditure that's
directed towards roads, it would actually be reasonably cheap for the government to provide free fares universally across all the, not just the area, but I think more importantly the buses in Hamilton, etc. So I think that's the key to it. I would like to see our council support that free fare campaign formally, and whether that can go through a committee first or something like that. But I think that's the way to approach it, rather than us sort of fiddling around ourselves with it. We need a nationwide approach to this. And to Andrew's point, I think probably it's the wrong time to do that sort of study, with respect, Andrew, in the midst of COVID. I don't think we will get a true perception of public opinion because of the the anxiety about travelling at the moment. So maybe if we did such a study, we should wait until things settle down with COVID a bit. Thank you.
Councillor Story.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to support what you were saying in terms of the half-price fares being a bit of an indicator for us. Sure, it's not scientifically robust, and there are a lot of other ways we could go into greater detail as to what is the driving factor that causes people to choose or not to choose public transport. But I think that will be an interesting indicator to shed some light on what might be some motivating factors. And of course, it is just an indicator, given, as you were saying, Mr. Chair, that there are still a lot of reluctance to travel about on any means of transport, any type of gathering. So, but I certainly look forward to seeing what comes out of that. I suppose in terms of the free fares argument, I just, from my perspective, and I'm sure everybody is well aware of this, that there is nothing for free. Nothing is free. And so if the fares are free, the cost of running the service remains the same. And so that differential is either picked up by ratepayers or is picked up by taxpayers, because nothing is free. So I along with my shared view with you, Mr. Chair, that the fare is probably not the option. I do think that if we were to consider that, I think we need to be realistic and open in our communication with ratepayers as to the implications of that. I would like to say that I was recently speaking with some constituents in Huntley, Councillor Strange, and there was a really positive response to that, the opportunity to take the train from Huntley to the base for a few hours and return. If you consider some of the barriers of that particular community, either in personal transport or an aging population that would like to access the amenities of a larger urban center, they were really positive about how regional council and other partners have considered how scheduling can provide other opportunities beyond just the commuter or the holiday maker. So just wanted to commend you on that, and make sure you were aware of the positive response within the communities on that.
Kia ora. Thanks very much, Councillor Story. Councillor White.
Yeah, I know that we're talking mainly about Te Huia here in terms of free service, but and I'm not averse to offering a free service, as especially as a way of getting people back into using public transport after we've had a period where people have been loath to use it. And just really conscious of the fact that public transport in places like Melbourne, where it's free, it's really, really well used, but it's also constant. So you don't have to wait very long for a bus. So I think the convenience aspect of public transport is something we really need to consider, because we need to have populations which can support that kind of thing. And the reason I'm raising that is in places like Taupō, where we do see buses going past with only one person on, even if we made it free there, I don't think we'd actually get that many more people on it, because there aren't enough buses regularly to make it convenient enough for people. So in Taupo, you know, people live quite a long way out of town, but there aren't enough buses to actually make it an easy thing to use, and a lot of the places like Kinloch are a long way out. So I guess what I'm saying is, in some places you'd have to look quite carefully at what the requirements are. Some places where convenience would matter more than the cost.
You've spoken once. The next person is Councillor Nicol. Jennifer, you got the floor.
Thanks very much. You can hear me all right?
Yeah, perfect.
I may as well turn my camera on since I'm not able to be there isolating this week. So I may as well just weigh in briefly on the transport topic because I notice nobody's mentioned reliability, and that is one thing that I'll certainly be harping on about in the next little while. I know that our statistics on reliability are still somewhere in the 80%, 80s. I don't know the exact number, but unless buses are reliable, people will not turn to them for their use reliably. If you don't provide reliability, they won't either. So I'd really be keen to dig deep into what the issues are there and how they can be overcome. And I know that the drivers shortage issue is one of them, but there will be others because it's been an issue for a long time. Just thank you, Angela, for your work, and the Regional Connections Committee and all the staff involved, because the Transport Business Improvement Review will be so helpful for allowing us to actually progress so many of the topics that have been raised today. And I also am really a big proponent of the flex service in the smaller buses, so that can't come fast enough to help transform the way that we see transport for public transport. And last but not least, on the topic of free fares, I see transport as a universal basic service, so I am a proponent of it being a very low, simple to calculate fare or a free fare, and therefore I'm also really looking forward to what's coming in the May 2022 budget as part of the emission reduction plan or otherwise. Thank you for that.
Thanks very much, Jennifer. Red, you've spoken once already, but you're most welcome to speak again.
Thank you, Chair.
This will be the final.
Thank you, Chair, for your generosity.
Councillor Litchfield, I don't need that kind of back chat. You've got the floor.
Oh, Chair, get rid, honestly.
Carry on, Fred. Okay, I'll sum up. Thanks very much, Angela, for and the participation and the positive participation we've had today. Repeating that it's these are abnormal times, the toughest since 1919 in regard to this pandemic, and we're all, most of us, keeping the focus. There is, and we'll see on Monday, and that's why I was employing councillors to either Zoom or come in person to this, which is a KPI for our CEO as well. And I think we've really made good strides in improving the public transport, given that it's been very difficult we've been locked down in COVID since virtually this council commenced 2 years ago. I would congratulate the central government in regard to their half-price fares. I think that'll be a good test. My view in regard to Hui, I think that there are issues in regard to where it's free. We'll be interested. We have priced where it's price sensitive. We've also got in regard to when we get into Auckland, because we've got to, Andrew, work with Auckland Transport, because what they call the timetable is difficult. The last thing that Auckland are really wanting to do is bump and KiwiRail their freight trains off and for us to get in central Auckland. But the cooperation has been fantastic from KiwiRail, Ministry of Transport and Auckland Transport. But the next period of the half price, I think, will be a good test. And hopefully we're getting out of COVID as well. So my final comment as my family come back from Austria this week. As I've come back, the whole of Vienna is just small cars, virtually like the Lime scooters, where you just put your credit card, drive to your destination, leave the car, and again they can pick it up. These big monsters that are going in and around our streets, particularly I see in Auckland and also in the Waikato, they look like dinosaurs, as Kathy was saying earlier. We've got to do, must be a better way, but the current government is certainly committed to public transport, and I think we're going to continue to see great improvements, particularly we have the cooperation of councils as well. Thanks very much. It's moved by Councillor Strange. Second by Councillor Teague. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, carried. Right, next item is that Waikato Plan Leadership, and that's under Councillor Nicol. Would you like to come online?
Sure, thanks so much, Chair, and thank you to yourself and Kataranga for giving myself and Angela Strange a bit more of a role there. So the main thing to report in regards to the Waikato Plan Leadership Committee minutes there is that Linda Te Aho from Waikato Tainui is now the co-chair, deputy co-chair, co-chair alongside Margaret Wilson, and there hasn't been a deputy co-chair for that side been designated yet. But there's also an update in the minutes of the various initiatives. If anybody's got any questions on any of that, I'm really keen to answer them for you. The main point to mention otherwise is that there will be a Waikato Plan Symposium, which I think is scheduled for about middle of the year. And that will be to share with the community a bit more externally what the Waikato Plan does and really put it on the map more.
Terrific work you're doing there, Jennifer, and that is starting to really work. Councillors, have you got any questions through the chair to Jennifer? Anyone on the screen there, Dave? Okay, it's moved by Councillor Nicol, seconded by Councillor Hodge. No comment, Catherine?
That's great.
No, formally put it that they be received. Are they're all section A?
Section A.
Yeah. I formally put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, carried. Next item that is you. I think we ate into some of your Te Huia, and I started running the council down that rabbit hole, but I get so enthusiastic about the Te Huia that I couldn't help myself. Are you on board there, Hugh?
I'm on board and I am listening.
Yeah, just put your voice into the mic. We can just hear you. Sounds like you're speaking from Lawrenceville.
Hopefully that is better.
That's good.
Okay, the Regional Transport Committee met at this last meeting. Now, the Regional Transport Committee is, its makeup is made up by legislation, and the reason for that is that it is a governance group that has overview of the priorities for transport needs for the region. So it's not Hamilton-centric, not rural-centric, and you have to get all parties agreeing that that is the priority of the region as opposed to one particular council.
True.
So therefore, the committee dealt with a request from Hamilton City to put a second person on, which was Dave McPherson, to come on the committee with full speaking rights with only one voting right. That did not get very much support at all. It was felt that Hamilton City had a representative there that they have appointed to represent the needs of the city, and they are taken into account with the needs of the region. And it did not go down well. So the motion that went was that it wasn't extended and there wasn't a further Hamilton City person coming on to that committee. Just at the end of that meeting, Councillor McPherson sent a somewhat personal and abusive email around to everybody on the committee, so it hasn't improved relationships there, but we'll see where it goes. That was on that one. On the Transport Agency, the Road to Zero is the campaign that they're currently working on, and while everybody commends them for doing it, it was looking at the cost of $5 million just to do the marketing to tell everybody that we want to go to a plan to zero. And it is becoming one of the issues for the Regional Transport Committee is government lowering speed limits on roads as a way of making safety and coming up with $5 million campaigns to lower safety rather than fixing the problem, which part of it is the state of the roads. So that was looked at. $5 million is still a fair amount of money for it. If you look at the Pairuri roundabout that is proposed to go into the 129 area there, the designation is currently going through. There's one property owner who is objecting to it, and that is working through the process, but they are happy that that will come through. Again, the State Highway 5 Taupo to Napier, the reduction in the speed limit has not met with a lot of support from the various members of the regional transport. They feel it's unwarranted over too big an area and won't achieve anything. Tihuia, yeah, Russ and the others have spoken on Tihuia. The numbers aren't very encouraging, but it is a nationwide issue rather than a specific issue. Nobody's going out, nobody's doing anything, and we just hope that it improves shortly. Thank you. Any questions?
Just I've got a question, Hugh. Just in regard to the capital connection, I understand that that's between Palmerston North and Wellington, the train service. I think it took about quite a few, well, nearly 10 years to get up to the point where it is today, and I think our quality of our train and even the branding of it, I think, is quite superior. I understand that their patronage is down by about 60%. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. It's down everywhere. What we've got to be careful of with Tihuia is we don't do a knee-jerk reaction and suddenly change the whole format of what it is. And that when it was established, it was a commuter service to take people between Hamilton and Auckland. We are now getting, and I hear what Pamela Story is saying, that the people in Huntly would like to be able to catch the Tihuia and go into the base and come back again. In my mind, that is more something for a bus service to regularly take people between those two small areas. If you start reverting the Tihuia and saying, we want your train to do this little one, some of them are saying we want to have more stops on the way between Hamilton and Auckland. You slow down or you increase the time frame of getting from A to B. And if we're going to have a fast and efficient service between Hamilton and Auckland, we need to concentrate on achieving that.
Thank you for the response. There's no further questions. Councillor Vercoe is going to move it, and it's going to be seconded by Councillor Strange. I formally put it, the minutes be received, Section B, Section A for noting, Section B for adoption. I formally put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, carried. Next item, it's that of the Hauraki Forum. Councillor Teck, you've got the floor.
Yes, thanks, Chair.
I'm sorry, I missed one there. Sorry, Dennis. I've got the civil defence. I really, poor old here I kind of stole his thunder on the Tihuia with diverting it through the Regional Connections Committee, but it wasn't all good news anyway. But it's a good responses, and I think it's very important we keep our colleagues, the facts of what's happening out there. Here it's page 82, and it's a minute of the Civil Defence and Emergency Meeting of the 28th of February, the Section A items. Hugh, would you please proceed?
Yeah, thank you, Russ. I was about to go next door for a cup of coffee. I thought you were going to continue in here. Civil Defence Emergency Management is one area that is currently being looked at by central government to make changes. Now, initially, the changes that we're looking at coming out was to nationalise an awful lot of the response and the whole managing of civil defence. It appears that government is pulling back slightly on this area because centralisation of the polytechs, the DHBs, the three waters, and has just felt that where are you trying to go in this and what is the problem and what are you trying to fix? And we've had virtual meetings with the Minister and others, and some of it is in there in the discussion that we had at our proper meeting. But what we're saying is that you have got a situation in the region where you've got the group that I chair, which is the central body that looks after anything outside of a small emergency in one territorial authority area. If there is an event, say on the Thames Coromandel District Council will manage that without necessarily having Big Brother come over the hill and say not doing it properly. So it's the roles and responsibilities that really is the crux of the review, is to say, well, who do you want to do what? And the danger is that if you start legislating to say this is how it will work, you will destroy what you've currently got, because we've got a mix of ways that we manage things in the Waikato. For instance, Hamilton City, who are responsible for managing an emergency within the city area, have contracted that service to the group and said, we will pay you the money, you manage everything within Hamilton City. And so that works well with the city and the group. You've then got Matamatapiako and Hauraki that also looked at it from a different perspective, that they said we're small areas. If we have even a moderate emergency in our area, we don't have the staff dedicated and fully trained to be able to manage it. So therefore, how about we two councils, individually, we will give money to the group and you employ somebody to look after us in our area. That works well again. You've got, for instance, the Waikato district is the one area that is adamant that nobody will come into their patch because they will do it all themselves. And that is fine. That is their right to do it. So how you get a legislation that allows that to continue with people saying, this is what works for us and how we want to go. And there is a desire to more regionally manage civil defence coming up. And if it's left alone to take its time, it will. Some of the other areas that are a concern for the committee is that there's a thing called a lead agency in the legislation. Now, at the moment, the lead agency with an emergency could be police, because it could be fatalities and those sort of things where police will be the lead agency. With COVID, Ministry of Health are the lead agency. They know how to do it. The problem you had with COVID was that Health was the lead agency, but the legislation didn't allow them to dictate under the civil defence legislation and start telling the civil defence and thereby all the councils in the area, you will provide security, you will provide this and you will do that. So it's a worry to how much control that you lose, and council should be aware that if it comes in as being floated at the moment and government had the lead agency role, they could therefore dictate what number of staff from councils in the area would respond as directed and controlled by central government, which is a concern at this stage. The other one is the iwi Māori involvement, and I must say that at our meeting, Tipa Mahuta came in on virtually and was able to give us some good advice as to how to go forward in that. Again, it needs legislation to change. If you remember with COVID, when the group, the region said to iwi Māori, you need to have welfare support to everybody, and your people, you know who they are, you know where they are, you need to be the agent that provides that, and they did, and they spent $1.4 million. And if the territorial authority had have spent the same amount of money, it would have been reimbursed just straight away. But because it was iwi Māori that did it, the central government would not reimburse them and said, no, we want to go through every blasted invoice and check this, and we don't think it's right. So it's a matter of working with government to say, okay, if the genuine belief is that we need to have more involvement, you, central government, need to recognise the status of iwi Māori within that organisation. So that's being worked on. Yeah, things are changing, but we believe that government is softening their original stance on there. Any questions?
Any questions from councillors? Anyone online, Dave, that posing questions to the chair? Okay, it's page 90 on the agenda. Thanks for working and enlightening this council where we're at and where the changes are occurring. Thank you very much, Hugh. It's moved by Councillor Virgo, seconded by Councillor Remington. I formally put it. It's section A for noting. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, carried. One further item before we're running bang on time is that of the Hauraki Golf Forum, and it's page 90 in the agenda, and if Councillor Teague would like to introduce this item. You've got the floor, Dennis.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Yeah, the minutes are there, as you say, on page 90. There's also a staff report or sort of accompanying those minutes, which summarise what went on at that meeting. I'll take that as read, and I'll move the minutes be received. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder? Also, Councillor Leepan seconds that. Questions and comments? Anything online? Okay. Did you want to make any comment? I formally put that. All those in favour, please say aye, that be received. Those against? Carried. We're now adjourned for morning tea. It's bang on time, Mr. Dave. And I'd move that this meeting stand adjourned just for 10 minutes. Can I just ask councillors, I personally would like you to consider wearing masks. One of the biggest, easiest or the worst back on board, and it is now open, Dave. And the item is that of the adoption of the 31 long-term plan. And I'll ask, it's page 101, and I'll ask Jenny if you'd like to come forward.
Mr. Chair, I was just going to leave you in the capable hands of Nicole. She's done the hard work on this process. We also have David Walker, who is the Audit New Zealand Director for this engagement online as well.
Thanks, Janine. Morning, councillors. I'll just do a quick sort of recap on what we've done to get here, and then we can have a few words from David if necessary. So as part of setting the budget for 22-23, council decided that they would consult on this change in rating authority of existing public transport services through Thames, Coromandel, Manamata, Piako and Hauraki districts, as well as proposing some new services in Thames, Coromandel and Hauraki districts. So on the 24th of February at your meeting, we proposed the text to include in the consultation document, which was endorsed by council. Since then, we have designed the consultation document and gone through the auditing process. So audit have done their review work. The design consultation document starts on page 104 of your agenda. It reflects that text that was signed off with some minor edits that were done through the auditing process. There were no substantive changes. Audit have provided us with an unmodified audit opinion for inclusion in the consultation document. That was circulated to you all last night. It has an emphasis of matter on that audit opinion that is just drawing the reader's attention to the funds from Waikato that aren't secured at this point. We had an emphasis of matter is quite common on audit opinions. We had one on our LTP for a very similar issue around funding from Waikato. David can talk to that more in a moment. Just in terms of what's coming up, so from here, once the consultation document is adopted, we go out for consultation starting tomorrow for the month of April, so the 1st to the 30th of April. Hearings and deliberations will then take place on the 23rd of May, and the final adoption of both the annual plan and the amendment to the LTP on the 20th of June. I might just hand over to David if he wants to make any quick, concise comments now, and if there's any questions from councillors for audit, and then we can come back to the consultation document if that's all right.
Yeah, that's terrific. Welcome and kia ora, David. You've got the floor. We will have questions or may have.
Thank you very much, Chair. My reception's not great. I am breaking up, so if I answer something sort of peculiar or interrupt somebody, my apologies. It's due to reception. There's not a lot.
The therapy this end is 10 out of 10. It's very, very clear. Thanks.
Oh, good. Well, I suppose it's better for you to hear me than the other way around. Hopefully, there's nothing. I don't have anything really to add. I was going to comment on the emphasis of matter, which Nicole has. I was also going to say that both the OAG in the hot review process and the audit team followed a very, very similar process to the funding around what happened on the railway during the LTP. Chair, other than saying well done to Nicole, she did a great job, and I think it's quite clear in the CD. If I can hand it back to either Chair, you or Nicole and councillors for any questions.
Yeah, that's terrific. Questions?
Chair, Barry here. I'd like to move the staff recommendation and just say very pleased with the audit and I'd like to fully support that by moving it. Thank you.
I'll second it. just spelling on that.
Do you have a copy of the agenda? I'm just
Questions? Any questions, councillors, online? It was circulated, I think.
Mr Chair, it was circulated by Nicole via email last night.
There are no questions. I formally now put it. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Councillor Schwartz abstains. Those against? It's carried. Please note, abstention by Councillor Schwartz. Thanks, Dave. Next item is that of health and safety. Nick, would you like to come to the podium? Just before Nick gets underway, we back to any, as I understand, 11:59 on Monday night. Is that correct? Public, councillors, staff can actually enter and exit this building without a vaccine pass. Is that correct? Yeah. Correct. Thank you. Okay, you've got the floor.
Thank you very much. Good morning, councillors. I'll quickly go through.
Andrew's got just a question there, Nick.
Sorry, did I hear you say that on this Monday night, people can come here without a vaccine?
I understand, Nick, from midnight, Monday night, that's the law.
Yes, of the 4th of April, so from the 5th of April.
Is that the basis on which Councillor White decided she needs to go now or has been asked?
I'll just Andrew, get that directed through acting CEO. Response will come from Tracy. Thank
you, Russ. And yes, just to confirm for those councillors who may not have heard Councillor McPherson's as to why Councillor White has left the meeting. I had a conversation with Councillor White in the adjournment and mentioned to her that our vaccine policy remains in place and that she was in breach of that policy. Councillor White was very understanding and disappointed, and I believe it was a genuine mistake as to timing, but it is the Chief Executive's responsibility to advise anyone who is in breach of health and safety policy. I advise that Councillor White and Councillor White acknowledge that and apologise for the misunderstanding. So there was a genuine misunderstanding all round. So Councillor White has left the meeting and we'll catch up on the discussion through the recording.
The question I have is Councillor White is particularly interested in the treaty training, and while you can watch the public the recording. Is any way that we could actually go the extra mile and to assist her on a one-to-one basis? We try to be an inclusive council, and I think we have right through. And I'd like to afford that offer if it can be properly done efficiently and with the presenters that prepared to do it.
Through you, Mr Chair, I know that's the desire of this council, and I'll liaise with Director Neville. I'm sure we can make that happen.
Nick, you got the floor.
Thank you. Okay, so we've got the written pack. It was written a month or so ago now, given the timing of this particular meeting. So a lot has changed since the report was prepared. And at the time we submitted the report, of course, we thought we'd be in the process of consulting over some changes to our approach for COVID. And of course, what happened last week was the government's announcements accelerated that work quite significantly. And we did have the opportunity to talk to councillors through a discussion last week about that. As we just sort of discussed, from 11:59 on Monday the 4th of April, a number of changes will take effect to the COVID protection framework. So in terms of what that means for our organisation, we've decided to retire our current policy settings around the My Vaccine Pass and vaccine mandate requirements. What we'll do instead is shift into a risk management based approach using our standard health and safety management tools. And what that really gives us is the ability to flex and change quite quickly based on the nature of the pandemic at any particular stage. So as we've experienced over the last few months, things can change quickly. And one thing that we're quite pleased with our approach to going forward will be the ability to flex very quickly with it. We briefed our staff on that last Friday and asked for any feedback from them up until late yesterday. We have a small amount of feedback that we've received, and we'll be reviewing that and confirming the changes to staff at the end of this week. In terms of impact of that for council, of course, as we've just mentioned, it means that councillors and others or visitors to our buildings will no longer be required to present a live vaccine pass. In terms of operating under the COVID environment, business continuity and staff wellness have been our primary focus, and we are managing pretty well in both cases. Since mid-February, we've had around 60 staff report positive with COVID. Most fall into that younger demographic or have children, and we have not to date identified transmission in our workplaces. And pleasingly, most of the symptoms that have been reported are mild to moderate, so we're in a reasonable state from a staff wellbeing perspective. We are seeing a bit of disruption to work, particularly where isolation requirements have been followed, and including with our contracted workforce, and often related also to access to schooling and childcare arrangements where they've been impacted also. So we're now also awaiting government communications on Monday around future settings for the COVID protection framework, and we've begun reviewing our approach for anticipation, I guess, of an eventual move to the orange setting and making sure for that. In terms of other parts of the report, you'll note there risk management really continues to be our focus. During March, we've been working primarily on the bow tie for workplace psychological distress. That's progressing really well. In fact, I was talking to my team earlier today and was reviewing their work in progress. We're looking at the linkages between the ISO standard for psychosocial wellbeing, which is the 45003 standard, and work in our culture program, and seeing really good opportunity there to think about workplace culture as a contributor to wellbeing at work, and recognising that a positive workplace culture will support a positive health and safety culture also. Incident reporting is noted. You'll see there the data does cover calendar years, so we're year to date, we're quite early in the year with the 2 months being reported. Having said that, we are concerned reporting remains quite low, so it's quite a focus for the team now to try and get reporting, well, ensure reporting is being made where it should be, so we get accurate data. WorkSafe, you'll note there we've got work to be done here at 160 over our hazardous substance stores, flammable stores in our basement. Some corrective work there is necessary. We had anticipated that would be completed by now, but we are in some cases having delays with contractor availability, so that will be still underway and will be completed, we hope, in coming weeks. And final point for me really is just noting our audit schedule remains on track in terms of the assessment and audit work the health and safety team do. That's really positive because our health and safety team in the last 4 or 5 months in particular have been heavily deployed to support COVID. So they're maintaining that audit schedule despite their other work to support COVID response. So I'll pause on that point.
Councillor Nebo and then Councillor Story. Oh, and Councillor, you go for it. Who was first? Right, Councillor Strange.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Nick, for the report. Bearing in mind that it was written earlier, so what I asked for last meeting won't show up in the report. That's cool. Just wanted to touch on the aggression incident on Te Huia, and either yourself or Mark shed some more light. Given that KiwiRail employ the staff, can we be confident that the onboard staff have received adequate training to de-escalate further situations?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, all of the KiwiRail staff have de-escalation training and the same kinds of requirements that we have of our bus driver workforce through GoBus. The particular incident is actually somebody that is known to us from previous. They have some challenges, but we worked with their caregiver to make sure getting that balance right. freedom of access and movement and those kinds of things for that individual and independence, as well as making sure that our services are safe, workforce protected.
So just to clarify, for those who didn't hear, Kiwi Rail staff receive training,
Yes, that's correct.
and we're in active communication with the caregiver
Yes,
to manage behaviour.
that's correct.
Thank you for clarifying.
Thanks, Angela, too, because it's just a bit muffled there. You're doing your best. It's your prerogative to wear the mask, but thanks very much for be careful the way I put it, but the translation. Clarification is a better word. Any further comment or questions, Angela? Councillor Story?
I suppose my first question was around those incidents of aggression and so those are two separate incidents. So one happened on the train. So if you say that, if I understand correctly, that's a Kiwi Rail employee as opposed to one of our employees. We've still reported it through our system.
Yeah, so we do report contractor incidents through our system, yes. Or external
So-
relationships we have with contracting bodies, yes.
Right, because they're not a contractor.
No, so we have the relationship obviously with Kiwi Rail in that case, but our staff could have chosen to report the incident additionally to the reporting that would happen through Kiwi Rail. So it falls into the concept of overlapping duties, so both PCBUs have the accountability to provide a safe workplace. And just clarification, yeah, that there was a member of staff on board, so the reporting would have come through that staff member.
And the other incident of aggression?
Yeah, the other one I think came through the security alert system recently to councillors. So that was in a property where individuals, approached staff and the property owner and were threatening. And so yes, that was captured in that way. That was followed. I think there's been some discussion also about that one, but with the police report, the staff acted, in our view, quite well in that situation and certainly de-escalated quickly and left the property, and the risk evaluation was done before that work was going to be to resume.
And the labeling of that as protesters, are you saying that these were landowners, or
No,
I'm
that's
not sure why it's...
No, that's a separate issue, sorry. The protester one was a day of action, I think it was called a fortnight or so ago, and we had anticipated that we may be one of the organisations that were visited in light of that protest action. Some of our officers were, in terms of a presentation of a letter with various requests included in that letter. At 160 here, we had prepared for that eventuality, but it didn't occur, so we didn't have the people coming into the site.
But this is listed under injury loss as opposed to a potential or a near miss or potential risk.
Yeah, I think the answer I gave around the people on property will probably come in the next report. I'm just overlooked the timing for that one. So the two here, the aggression, were the train incident, and then the possibility was noted in our incident reporting system of those protesters coming in, so it was captured in that one.
Thanks for that, Nick. Next question I had was, I just taking note of what you mentioned about the number of staff who were well. I do know that in some territorial authorities there have been their staffing numbers are down so much that it's impacting on their ability to on timely processing consent applications. Just wondering if we're encountering any challenge to our ability to fulfill our timely or our commitments to timely response.
The short answer is no. The more full answer is that there are some areas in terms of our desired 2-day turnaround for queries. That's part of our being back to quickly as we can. There are times when we're struggling to that. There's times when we're struggling to achieve that, but it's a matter.
Okay, yeah. But we're not having an issue where we have a consent has to be processed within a fixed number of days, we're not having any issue in filling those at this time.
What we're doing is we're using a lot of consultants, so we need to ensure
We're
that we're
using a
meeting
lot
those,
of consultants.
meeting those customers.
Further questions? It's your prerogative to leave the mask on, but you're going to have to pitch your voice a bit stronger because it's really, really hard to hear. And remember, this is being recorded and people are watching and listening online. No criticism, but you've answered the question, but next time up. Okay, the next, we're going to break at 11, but the next questions or statements, Councillor Fred, you got the floor? Fred?
It's not working. Oh, yes, it is now. To do with the basement, I've shown particular interest. I'm not a structural engineer or any engineer at all. Notice those the big beams. There were some of them that had cracked around the where they're being supported. I now notice that they've got this wrap stuff around them like a band-aid over the top of those cracks. Is the building, you know, I'm just a question whether in an earthquake, whether or not that thing will actually support what it's been designed to. Also noted that the fire systems, you know, the sprinklers, that a couple of the joints that were holding the system up were practically rusted off already. And it's a brand new building. I'm just concerned about real public safety in the event of an emergency.
Nick, what I propose to do, Fred has the floor. I think that this will take time to respond fully, and you deserve that full response. And these are important issues you've raised. So I'm going to actually just, at this point, Fred, just adjourn rather than just give a quick response, because I've got the treaty training at 11, so about 3 minutes over time. But this will not be, this will be the first item we'll consider when we adjourn the meeting after lunch, Fred, because it's also got the pre-sprinkler system, which we had in the big downpour, where there was just an enormous amount of water cascaded through this building. So, Fred, we're not flicking it off, but I have to just keep to the timetable to show etiquette to our guests that are going to present. So, sorry, Nick, you're just going to have to get we can't learn too much. Treaty training, please stay with us. Neville? Yeah. I formally adjourn the meeting. That doesn't need a resolution. Meeting stands adjourned.